Hey y'all, get under the covers and get comfortable because we're about to get intimate. No, not that kind of intimate, but close. Did you know that 3 of the most intimate conversations we can have are sex, mental health, and finances? Probably didn't expect that last one, did you? Financial challenges are actually one of the leading causes of divorce and stress today. A big reason? We don't talk about it. At least not thoroughly anyhow. That's where I come in. Hi, I'm Dr. Michelle Marie, a certified wealth coach, best-selling author, and the creator of Bedroom Talks. Get financially intimate. A podcast focused on bringing awareness to the importance of financial intimacy and enticing openness to get real in a judgment-free zone. Together, we're going to cover a multitude of financial topics so you can leap toward financial freedom with confidence. Are you ready? Grab your wine or whatever drink you prefer, and let's unrobe this topic. Well, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Bedroom Talks podcast, where we get financially intimate. So it's March Madness, and what better way to incorporate the concept of March Madness than to talk about the madness of finances on the Bedroom Talks podcast? So, let's first think about some of the madness that comes up with our finances. I bet you automatically thought about unexpected emergencies or unexpected expenses. Something that popped up that you did not think was going to happen. We're going to talk about that today. Managing unexpected expenses is a critical part of the wealth building process because life happens. Okay, so we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to go over some tips to help you navigate through the tough times. All right, the idea here is to give you some tips and insight of things that you can do now to prepare for these unexpected emergencies. Okay? If you are currently dealing with an unexpected emergency, some of these things are not going to apply at the moment, but once you get through it, you will be able to apply it for the next thing. There will be a tip or two that you can utilize with your current unexpected emergency if you should have one at this time. Okay, so first I want to just express that everyone deals with unexpected emergencies. It is the unfortunate part of life. Cars break down. We have home repairs, things come up with the kids, something random happens that is just completely out of the blue. For the most part, those types of things cost anywhere between a few hundred to $1,000. Okay. There are situations where something major happens and it's going to cost a few $1,000s. Okay. Those things often are few and far between. Okay. So as we're going through some of the tips today, I want you to think about the little things that come up that are $1,000 or under for the repairs and the things that are the bigger items. Okay. And just process how you would handle those things based on the information that we're discussing today, as well as what category you would put that thing in. Okay. So, unexpected expenses can be a huge burden on your finances, especially if you don't have a plan to manage them. Common unexpected expenses include car repairs, medical bills, home repairs, and emergency travel. So, what do we do in those moments when these things come up? How do we avoid going into more debt or not being able to pay a bill? One of the first ways to help this is to prioritize your expenses. When an unexpected expense occurs and you don't currently have an emergency savings, first and foremost, we have to prioritize by utilizing the 4 walls. Okay, your 4 walls are the most important pieces of your expenses that are going to help you and your family survive. Okay, in this situation, when it is a unexpected expense and you don't have emergency savings, you are in, I just need to make sure that there's a roof over my head, the lights are on, my family can be fed, and I can get to work. Those are your 4 primary areas to focus on first, okay? That is shelter, utilities, food, and transportation, okay? Shelter being your mortgage and insurance. Your utilities, the electric, gas, are the basics. Food as in groceries. That means no eating out, just the groceries, okay? And transportation, that would be car payment if you have it, car insurance, and gas, okay? Those are your 4 walls that helps to keep your family protected and cared for at the bare minimum, okay? Once you ensure those basics are taken care of, then you can start to plan out the rest of the items with priority order, such as other bills that are reoccurring that need to be paid, right? So you start to think about what things are not like absolute necessity. Those things are at the bottom of the list, okay? That's how you prioritize it in an emergency situation. Another thing that you can do in this particular situation is to call some of the companies that you possibly owe money to, as in maybe not your mortgage or anything, maybe like a credit card company or something of that nature. If you have a gym bill or monthly gym membership, things like that, you can call them and say, hey, like a major situation come up and I just need to pause my membership for like a month or 2 months or something of that nature. Oftentimes these companies have the ability to do that. So it's okay to ask. The worst they're going to do is say no, but most often they're going to say, yes, we can pause for such and such amount of time. Okay. Okay. The next thing that is vital to handling an emergency or unexpected expense is to prepare for it. You prepare for it by having an emergency fund. The very first thing to focus on is that $1,000 emergency fund. That is so that those little minor things that come up that you're not expecting, a minor car repair, emergency room visit, things like that, you can use the starter emergency fund, $1,000, for those types of things, okay? Once you get that initial $1,000, then at that point you continue to add to it until you get to about 3 to 6 months of your expenses. And that's your primary expenses, okay? The things that you have to pay every single month and or things that you need in order to live, such as food and transportation, things like that, okay? It takes a little bit of time to build up to that 3 to 6 months. And occasionally you do have to dip into it. The best way to get to the point of having the 3 to 6 months is to keep adding whatever little you can to it. Even when you have to dip into it, just start replenishing it as soon as you're able to, okay? You will get there as long as you do not give up on building that fund, okay? You can also look for ways to cut expenses. When an emergency comes up, it might be necessary to cut back on some of your regular expenses to make ends meet. Look for ways to cancel money, such as canceling subscriptions or eating out less frequently. This is so huge. This is so huge because when emergencies arise, at that point, and I know this is tough to feel, it's tough to hear, it's tough to process, but when an emergency arises and we don't have an emergency fund, this is the time that we pause on some of our wants. Okay? When we pause on our wants during an emergency situation, it allows us to be able to take care of the emergency expense and get right back on track. What often happens is we think, oh, well, I'll just put it on credit and I'll pay the credit card back. What you're doing by using that thought process and that methodology is adding more of an expense because you're paying interest on that credit card. So, if you consider cutting back on some of your wants, I say pause because we often think of when we have to cut back or, quote, sacrifice, unquote, we feel like we're denying ourselves something, right? The way I like to look at it is a temporary pause so that I can take care of the immediate situation and get myself right back to where I want to be without much of a delay, which will keep me in peace and not have me paying extra money to other people's pockets. The very, 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 very last resort, if you have no other means, you have gotten to your four walls and there's really nothing else you can cut back on, and you are not able to get assistance from your family or some other avenue, there are resources out there. By the way, sometimes your local communities have financial support resources. if you're connected with a church community or something of that nature, they can sometimes help if you ask and they have the option. There you go. So that is something to consider, okay? But if you don't have that ability, if you're not able to seek some financial support from family or a church community or anything like that, and say you have, a $2,000 to $3,000 car repair bill that came up, and you're like, I have to get this fixed because I have to get back. I can't get to work if I don't have this, something of that nature. At that point only, I would recommend considering a very small personal loan. Okay. And I don't say this often because we can get caught in the habit of, oh, I need this. Let me just take out a loan and I'll pay it back when I can. And then we continue that debt cycle. So we want to only use this as a very, 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 very last resort. But if you go this route, research the banks. Choose 3 to 5 banks to look at their interest rates. Okay, what are their interest rates? You can usually do a generic calculator for them for each bank where you can put in, okay, if I request this amount for this amount of time, this is the interest rate, and this would be my approximate monthly payment. You can often do that without having to apply, okay? Once you find the bank that you feel like is best for you with the interest rate that you're most comfortable with, at that point, apply for it, okay? The reason why I would recommend that over a credit card is because the interest rates on a personal loan are traditionally much lower than a credit card, okay? Again, I will reiterate, that is an absolute last resort, okay? And I will even go so far to say, if you are considering this option, talk to somebody like myself before you make that decision. Let's talk out what all of your options are and what is the best case scenario for you, okay? I have been there. I know exactly what those feelings are like when you're processing that decision. The fear, the frustration, I really don't want another loan, especially if you're trying to work on your credit, you don't necessarily want to add anything else on. I get all of those thoughts and feelings. Okay, so someone like myself can help you to process what you're feeling and thinking and help you to make an informed decision, as well as suggesting a plan to get yourself back on track afterwards. Okay? It's important to remember that unexpected expenses are a part of life. And we have to be prepared for them. By creating an emergency fund, prioritizing your expenses, cutting back on expenses, and seeking support when necessary, you can manage unexpected expenses like a pro. And above all things, I encourage you to remember this. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight." We submit this desire to control every bit of our finances to the Lord. He will guide you. He will give you wisdom. He will provide for you. Sometimes it's going to be dropping finances in your lap that you weren't expecting. Sometimes that's going to be somebody coming to you and saying, hey, is there anything that you need right now? Can I support you? And maybe it's not them being able to pay for whatever that expense is, but maybe, they can bring you some meals, which will help you cut back on your grocery expenses. Maybe they can help give you rides to work if you need it, or something of that nature while you're working out, being able to pay for the car repair bill or something of that nature. God will do those things. Lean on Him every single day. And when you have a situation that arises, don't be afraid to ask the Lord for help. He wants to help you. Robert H. Schuller says, tough times never last, but tough people do. Remember that even in challenging times, you have the strength and resilience to overcome and succeed. Succeed and exceed. That's all for the Bedroom Talks podcast today. Remember that unexpected expenses can be tough to manage, but with a little planning and guidance, you can get through them. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to like, comment, share, follow, subscribe, whatever your podcast app option is. And come back next week for another episode. Talk to you soon.